So how does the jewelry business figure into plumbing?
Well, utility sales and engineers sold me their building that they had on 6th Street southwest there. And I built an addition on it. It was kind of only about 12 feet wide, but it was about 50 feet long. And I had a so-called jewelry store there, but most of it was rock shop jewelry, you know, with agates in it and stuff like that.
Right.
I know I went up to Minneapolis one time with this Wheeler Manufacturing Company, which made a lot of it. Had a booth there, and I gave him my card, and it says, put $500 worth of that stuff in a box, and I'll be back for it. And the salesman told me later that the first thing he did is grab the Dun & Bradstreet book, see if I was listed in there.
Okay.
But when I got there, they had it all ready for me. I used to sell a lot of that crap. It wasn't bad looking, but I wouldn't call it high-class jewelry. Now that corner is about a foot short at least.
Stones and the rings and all that kind of thing. I've always
kind of been interested in precious stones.
Yeah.
Ever since I bought that first bag of diamonds in Dison.
Dison, China.
Yeah. The girls used to charge 50 cents over there.
So, tell me about your love life. How long were you married to your first wife?
Carol?
Yeah. Helen.
I met Carol in Minneapolis. We got married in 1949 or 50, forget which.
Right, this is Helen, right?
Helen.
Right.
And she died of pancreatic cancer on March 24th, 1994.
That's too bad. And so you met her in Minneapolis, huh? How did you meet her?
Well, that was interesting in itself. On weekends, I used to drive back to Alexandria. And, matter of fact, my biggest endeavor in Alexandria was bootlegging booze. Olmsted County was a dry county. Nothing, no liquor could be sold. But Stearns County, which West Union was in, it was only about 20 miles from Alexandria. So I used to drive there near the end of the week and load up my little box in that pickup with Pete Hagen's neutral grain spirits, rye whiskey. It cost me $1 a pint. And we take it out to those barn dances, and the going rate was $5 a pint. But one night, there was only one bottle left, and this brother of mine had 3 guys auctioning it out, and one of them paid $50 for it. But then I had rented an old store building way down the end of Alexandria, and I'd keep my surplus in there, and I had a refrigerator, and I used to keep some sausages and things like that. And all the police in Rochester and Alexandria had a key to the place, so they could stop by and get a short shot anytime they wanted to. And the police chief's son worked for me.
And so they would stop by and, okay, so you were
Of course, I didn't stock it with anything good. I stocked it with Pete Hagen's rye whiskey.
But this made you a VIP among the police department.
Well, the chief was very strict. He would have confiscated the shit and closed me down if he'd have found out about it.
Yeah.
he didn't get along with his son too well either.
Okay, so back to Helen. So how did you? How does this relate to Helen?
How did what?
How does this relate to Helen? How did you meet her? So you were.
Well, all this booze stuff was long before I met Helen.
Okay, so how did you?
I had Southwest Plumbing and Heating in Edina when I met Helen.
Okay.
And I had come up to that weekend and went to one of these barn dances and got talking to one woman. And she said she had a friend in Minneapolis and wanted me to call her. So I called her. It turned out this friend was staying in a rooming house with Helen.
Uh-huh.
So I called a friend and made a date for her that night. And I heard somebody in the background say, has he asked if he's got a friend? That was Helen. So Jim Pfeffer was with me. So I said, yeah. So she had a date with Pfeffer that night.
Uh-huh.
And we went to some place on Lake Street where they had some of these dances that I could never do, no matter what.
Uh-huh.
But the girl, I had Marge something. I made a date with Helen the next night. And we started going together all the time after that.
So how long were you married?
Huh?
How long were you married?
Well, I got married
her?
approximately 49 or 50.
49 or 50
Let's
years
say
before
50,
she
and
died.
she died in 94.
Yeah.
So that was 44 years.
Okay. Well.
We took an awful lot of trips together.
Yeah.
See, I've been to all the 50 states, all the provinces of Canada, and I figure about 25% of the countries of the rest of the world. I've been to Spain 16 times.
Wow. And what's the attraction of Spain? Why
I
do you
don't know,
like
I
it?
just like the place.
Yeah.
There's one restaurant that I ate about 30 times at.
Really?
I used to send him a letter before I left and tell him I'd be there on such a date at 7:31 or 8:54 or some odd time like that. And I'd come there, they were all lined up there waiting for me. The maitre d', the chef, the owner, the piano player.
And you would clockwork. You would like be watching your clock, and as soon as that moment arrived, you'd walk
that
in the door.
odd time would stick in their mind, you know.
Uh-huh. That's funny. Well, and so you had some kids with Helen, huh? How did that work out?
6.
6. Oh, jeez. And what's it like to have 6 kids?
5 boys and 1 girl.
Yeah?
The girl never liked Helen. No, she liked Helen, but she never liked Carol.
Right. Yeah, well, that's too bad.
So we never see her.
Yeah, well, that's too bad, Bernie.
And of course, then Donald has that. I sold him that Rochester lapidary.
Well, and then your other sons, David and...
David lives in Rochester. And then Paul has taken over my business in Wisconsin.
Has he?
It ain't my business. He started his own, but he's using my building, and my one brother Roger lives up there. Paul seems to be doing pretty good.
That's good.
He don't do anything like schools or hospitals. He kind of sticks to residential stuff.
How about Gary?
Gary's a mechanical and electrical engineer in St. Paul. He works for some German company. They pay him $150,000 a year, and they make what they call servo motors and robots and that kind of stuff. He just wrote a book. It sells for $175.
Really? That's not a cheap
But
book.
he didn't have to go find a publisher. They came to him and asked him to write it.
Really? So he's a pretty sharp guy, huh? Did you go to school, Bernie?
I started school 1 year early. I skipped the 3rd grade, and I finished the 9th grade. But in the 4th grade, I had read every book in the school library. And they used to, every month, they'd get in a whole new supply of books. And they were everything. They were adult books and everything. Some of them that a 4th grader shouldn't be reading, I guess. But I did.
Well, right, and you've got a... You mentioned earlier that you have a library of like 2,000 books at your house, and you're trying to decide which ones you want to keep as you move, huh? So you have quite a library. You must have read a lot in your life.
Well, yeah, I've read about everything you can think of. I've always claimed that I can talk to anybody about any known subject, and most of them won't know I'm lying. She had pancreatic cancer.
Right.
And the only thing the doctors do about that is they'll give you an accurate time of how long you got to live. They'll tell you got 6 months, and they're usually right.
And were they right in her case?
Just about on the money.
Really? So that must have been hard to learn that she only had a certain amount of time to live, huh?
Yeah.
So then after she died, you were widowed for a while, and then you met...
I met Carol later that fall. So I remember we went down to Michael's. Michael's always been my favorite restaurant.
Right.
They opened up in Rochester in 1952. And when they first opened, I was eating in there. And I ate there ever since. I used to have Rochester's best Christmas parties. I had about 150 people at my parties. And it was a case where they ordered anything they wanted on the menu. And that, you know what they call their library room there?
Right. Yeah.
That they set up with a bar, and they set up an hors d'oeuvre table in there. And for I'd always have entertainment. For several years, I had the Rochester Male Chorus. Well, they were cheap enough. I paid them $100. But they got to clean up the hors d'oeuvre table, and the bar was open for them. And that used to cost me $600-700 because they drank like fish.